Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Spirit Side Podcast. I'm your host, Paul James Caden, and today we are going to get into part 2 of the coronavirus Judgment Day. And this particular episode is being called Extraterrestrials, the Black Death, and the Jinn. Now, some folks may be scratching their heads and saying, how does all this tie into the coronavirus? Some people may already have an inkling of where I'm going with this, but I'm going to unravel this knot in just a moment, and it's all going to make sense. But first of all, I'd like to do a short recap on the things we talked about in the last episode. Now, we talked about last time about a lot of religious people claiming that this was a judgment from God. This was the beginning of the end. This was God's wrath coming on the sinful earth. And we talked about the more moderate religious folks who said, well, now hold on a minute. If this were going to be a judgment or the wrath of God, why is it only striking the common people, the poor, the elderly, the young? Why is it not affecting these world leaders or these people in, positions of power, the people in the high ivory towers, as we would say? Why do they seem to be untouched and seemingly unscathed by all of this so far? Why are they going about life on the world stage as usual? It's war, it's lying, it's politics, it's weapons, it's greed, and not a whole lot of people seem to be saying a whole lot about this. I mean, here in the United States, in the past, we would have had the president, we would have had different people from our government coming out and speaking about this coronavirus crisis. But from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, maybe some of you out there have heard something, I haven't heard a peep from our government. Now I look at the headlines of the news. I watch a little news every morning to keep up just what's going on in the world, the state of the country, the state of the world, and I haven't heard anything. And I find that strange. But nonetheless, the question is asked, if this is a judgment of God, why the common people and not the people who would, for lack of a better term, be more deserving of that divine judgment or that particular, wrath or punishment? We talked about the possibility, is this a bioweapon? Is this something that the elitists, that the governments of the world are releasing in the mass population for just that, population control? And you might hear that and say, oh, man, PJC, man, he's really out in the tall grass with this one. I don't know. But I'll tell you something. I'm not one of these over-the-top conspiracy theorist people. I don't go down that rabbit hole. But as I've always said, there is some truth to a lot of the things that they talk about. But then they get too far out in the tall grass and start sounding crazy. Then everything starts to be doubted that they say. But things that they say, at least some of it, is not conspiracy, is not made up. And I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know this, do a little bit of research, because there were some papers that were released probably, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, could be a little more than that. And these were declassified government documents. And in those documents, it talked about how the United States government and military sprayed live viruses from airplanes over populated areas. I believe it was California, and there were some other parts of the world. And I believe that they somehow, brought it into subway systems or something of that nature. But they wanted to see how it would affect the population. How quickly would it spread? How many people would get sick? There was another incident where they injected some kind of virus into chicken eggs and released them for public consumption. Again, to see how it would affect people. Now, if our government would do something like this, what else would they do? How many things like this have been done that we don't know about? Because we only know about maybe a handful of them that they've pulled on the public. And why would they experiment with such things? Why would they spray live viruses over heavily populated areas? Why would they put viruses in chicken eggs for people to consume? Was this just a test for something? Or was this step one in the research of a greater agenda that would be fulfilled later down the line? Because let's face it, we can rewind back to the 1970s, the 1960s, and these people were already talking about, by 1990-something, by 2000-something, there's going to be so many people on the Earth's not going to be able to hold us all. So they were already pushing this narrative. And they've been forever talking about, it's only a matter of time before the next superbug or the next plague strikes humanity and kills, thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of us, and our medicines aren't going to be able to treat it. And some people say, yeah, that's the way they openly tell us what their plans are and what's to come. And then when something like the coronavirus comes, they'll say, well, here it is. We knew it all along, and we've heard them talk about it for so long, we'd never suspect that it was something that was introduced into the mass populace. So these people are definitely, I would use the word evil to the core. And you hear all this talk, there's got to be separation of church and state and religion and government, we all, a lot of people smile that, church and state, religion and government don't mix and they're separated and that's good. But really, that's a lot of phooey. Because these people, these ultra-rich people, they follow some very bizarre occultic, religious, spiritual, and philosophical ideas. And many of them refer to themselves as the masters of the universe, the lords of the earth. They really believe that it is their divine right. They are the chosen ones to rule over the earth. And I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. And they believe it is their job to eventually build utopia, the new Eden, the second Eden. And you and I, folks, the common man and woman, our part in all this is to be very few, easily controlled, and to serve the lords and masters through producing or working. Well, we're kind of the ones that go out and work the garden, work in the factory, whatever it is our masters need. And that's not a lie. You might hear that and say, oh, no, that's not so. But it's so. Why are the politicians here in the United States, Republican and Democrat, going to a place called Bohemian Grove and dancing around a bonfire in hooded robes with a giant statue of a pagan god? And no one's allowed to watch this. No one's allowed to film it. No one knows what goes on there. And some people say, oh, that's fine. It's just like a fraternity, like Skull and Bones or something like that. These are our politicians, folks. And when you know a little bit something about the occult, when you know a little bit something about Luciferian philosophy and what that is, and I'm not talking about straight up devil worship, it's something else, at least on the surface. And then you hear what these people say, you see what these people do, you see what the actions are that they take. You begin to realize and kind of come to the conclusion, something really stinks in the kitchen cupboard. Something's not right with these people. Something's not right on the world stage. Something's not right with some of these events that happen in our world. And now am I saying, oh, they're orchestrating everything. Coronavirus is a bioweapon. I can't say that for sure. I don't think anybody really can. But it looks suspicious. Even my wife, who is not a conspiracy-minded person at all, watches the news every day and says, something's wrong with this. What are we not being told? Why are these people dying and they bury the bodies right away? Why are the doctors dying? Why is there so much strangeness? We don't even really know what the symptoms are of this particular virus. Why is there so much shrouded in mystery and, just secrecy around it? Even she surmises something's not right, man. They're not telling us something. But doesn't that sound just like our wonderful, trusted leaders in this world? So we went over all that just to say, in the last episode, we talked about that. Could this be a plan of the elitists, something that they're putting out there, population control? Or is it something else? And in this episode, we want to get into the something else. Now, we talked a little bit in the last episode as well about what the Bible and what the Quran had to say about the judgment of God. And we unraveled that a little bit. So to start off going into this particular new territory, I want to read from the Quran to begin with, Surah 6, verse 100. And I'll paraphrase and break down here a little bit so you understand what it's saying. And it says, and they, talking about human beings, man, and they made the Jinn associates with God. Now that word associates could be read, and they made man, or they, mankind, made the Jinn associates, partners, or equal with God, while God had created them, meaning the Jinn. And they, mankind, falsely attributed to God. The Quran also goes on to say in another verse later on that most people on earth throughout time and in the future, which would be now, worship the Jinn. Now, this is closely married to the biblical narrative, where it talks about people who give in to the doctrines of demons. They worship, dark, evil, negative spirits, demons, devils. And these are their gods. And I wanted to cite these verses and this idea in the Bible and the Quran because I want to take a step back to these elitists and their agendas. Now, these people always claim to be people of faith. We're Christians, we're Jewish, we respect all the faiths out there, equality. But their actions are always contrary to that of what a person of faith would be. Their actions are always very selfish, always very sabotaging. It never has a good result. So the question I would ask, who, and I don't quite know how to phrase this, so I'm just gonna put it out there and then go on and kind of wrap this up, and you'll see where I'm going with it. Who is the God that they worship? Now, I ask that question because I myself, as an amateur ufologist, and I've been doing this, interested in this subject for over 2 decades, so maybe I should take, the word amateur out. I don't know. But I'll just say, as a ufologist, I'm well aware that in the study of ufology, it is believed and it is said that our government, now I'm sure this is true for other governments across the world, our government made contact with something or someone early in the space race, or maybe even earlier than that. And they have met secretly with whoever or whatever this is for decades now. It is said, and there are some people right out of the military, right out of, former government employees who say, our government has a deal with these beings. The beings give them technology or secrets in order for them to be able to experiment on us, the common people, like cattle. Take our DNA, do all these weird things to us, hence the alien abduction scenario. There are people in ufology who are a little bit more religious, I guess you could say, who say that the ultimate agenda of the elitists has been confirmed or spurred on by these beings. These beings are claiming to be something higher than what they really are, and they're telling our beloved politicians and rulers that this is the way they need to govern the planet in order for there to be ultimate peace and prosperity and health and paradise on earth. This is what you have to do. And they're following our politicians, our leaders, the elitists are following the instructions of these beings whom they believe to be either angels, gods, or highly advanced extraterrestrials who seeded this planet, and that's where we came from. So could this be one of the reasons why that these people who call themselves the masters of the universe, the lords of the earth, the elitists, the chosen ones, is this why they can get up there and claim to be people of faith, but yet act so deceptively, so greedy? Declare war at a moment's notice just to take someone else's resources and have, more money, more oil, more things, more whatever. Is this why they get up there and say, well, I'm a person of faith and I go to church or I go to synagogue or I go wherever, every Sunday, every Saturday, I read my Bible, I do this. But then when it comes to their programs, the first thing that they'll do is cut the money in the programs that help the poor, the needy, the elderly, the disabled. Take money, medical care, insurance coverage right away from them without even blinking an eye. And these are supposed to be the people that they take care of. Is this why these people can do such horrible things like spray live viruses over populated areas of the country? Because their gods told them it's okay to act this way. Now, that's a very interesting question, and I am one of those people who are of a belief that it is certainly very possible. I think this is why NASA has always been so secretive. I think this is why our government out and out lied for years now. Oh, UFOs, no, we don't have any evidence of any of the thing like that happening. People are seeing airplanes and swamp gas and chasing Mars and Jupiter and Venus across the night sky thinking it's a UFO. Now, all of a sudden, over the last 2 or 3 years, here's the government and the military saying, oh yeah, they're everywhere and we've seen them for years. We don't know what they are. Everywhere. See them all the time. In the sky, over the ocean. Everywhere. Our people have seen them. We don't know what the hell they are. Why the change of story? And nobody has come out and said, hey, wait a minute. Why did you lie to us then for all those years? And what else are you lying about? Because could it be that they know exactly what those things are, exactly who is piloting them, and what they're doing here? So I don't doubt, I definitely do not doubt that our government has made contact with something, someone from somewhere, and they're doing just that. They're worshiping the Jinn. They're worshiping demons. They're setting up, as the Quran says, partners and equals with God. They're speaking of things and doing things and dabbling things that they know not of, and attributing it to God, as the Quran says, but they know not. Now, when it comes to extraterrestrials and the Jinn, man, if you do a study on that, the similarities of what the modern day extraterrestrials do and what their capabilities are and what the Jinn are said to do or can do, very, very similar. And did you know, ladies and gentlemen, let me just put this out here as something to think about. In one of my recent podcasts, I talked about UFOs and extraterrestrials and, the ability of these things. They walk right through solid walls. They can change their appearance, and how some people see extraterrestrials as an owl or a dog, particularly a black dog. And I talked about that movie, The Intruders, that was based on a book by Bud Hopkins, where the woman got up in the night, she looked out of her window, and there was this big black dog just sitting in her yard in the middle of the night, just staring at her through the window. Then, after a few minutes, suddenly it wasn't a dog anymore, and it came through the wall, and of course she was abducted. Jinn are said to be shapeshifters, and what's one of the most common things in the Muslim tradition that they take the shape of? If you guessed a black dog, you win some bubble gum. Because I find that to be absolutely fascinating. And there's more, and maybe I'll do a show on that. I did one in the past, probably about a year ago, give or take. But maybe I'll do another one on the Jinn and extraterrestrials, because the similarities are uncanny. There is a book out there called UFOs in the Quran. And, I think you can get it for like $12.99 hardcover on Amazon. The name of the author escapes me at the moment, but it's the only book, UFOs in the Quran. And it talks about, some of the UFO sightings in the past, popular UFO sightings, and then goes back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and stories about the Jinn and things that they did, things that they could do, abducting people. Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely. And so it makes you wonder, are these people, these so-called self-proclaimed masters of the universe and lords of the earth, as the Quran said, most men worship the Jinn, and they set them up as associates, equals, partners with God. And that begs the question, could it be that extraterrestrials, aka the Jinn, could release something like the coronavirus? Oh man, there's PJC, man. He's going out in that tall grass again. I think he's been sniffing some glue over there. Well, if you didn't know this, here's a mind blower. Did you know that there are a certain amount of, scientists or, fringe scientists, and some of them not really on the fringe at all, in the scientific community, who believe that some of our most crippling plagues and epidemics could be traced to the darkest voids of space, or even extraterrestrials. Now, there's a video. I'm not sure if it's on digital download or if you could find it on YouTube. But there's actually a documentary from 2011 entitled "Aliens, Plagues, and Epidemics." And I just found this documentary while doing research for this particular show. But I have read before and watched documentaries before where there are people from the scientific community who say, hey, some of these greatest crippling plagues and epidemics could be something that's drifting in from the void of space. Or maybe they're being released. It's being released by extraterrestrials. And there's some people who believe that this world we're kind of the petri dish, enslaved by these extraterrestrials or Jinn or demons or archons, call them what you will. And they play these kind of games with us. And teach our beloved leaders, as I always refer to them as in this show, how to play games with us as well. But here's another one. This is a real clincher, and maybe some of you know this, perhaps some of you don't. But did you know in the Middle Ages, during the time of the Black Death, many people reported seeing bronze flying ships in the sky emitting a strange mist or a fog. And then in that area, the plague would suddenly start spreading. Many people reported seeing in fields, if they were farmers, in their cornfields or where the vegetables were growing, they reported seeing tall, black, hooded figures walking through the harvest fields, spraying a strange mist on the corn, the wheat, whatever it is they happen to be walking through. And, of course, the plague began to spread. And also, did you know that because of the sightings of these black hooded tall beings, in the black robes and hoods, spraying mist on the harvest, this is where we get our imagery, our modern day imagery of the Grim Reaper. That's where it comes from. Because some people said that, maybe they were the angels of death coming to, show themselves to let, the people know that the plague was coming. The plague was going to claim someone or many people in that particular, village or neighborhood or whatever. Now, going back to the Middle Ages, we don't know what these people saw. We don't know if it was mass hysteria. We don't know if, they saw something or they did or did not. But allegedly, from what I heard about this, this wasn't like a word-of-mouth type of thing. There was somebody that might have reported seeing a bronze ship spraying a mist, or a tall, hooded being in their field, and then maybe somebody miles and miles away that, didn't hear this, didn't know anything about these rumors or what people were saying that they saw, and then they said they saw the same thing. So that's kind of That's kind of bizarre. And it's one of the things that, at least for me, makes me sit up and go, And again, these are things that are quite well known in ufology. And this is where you get a lot of these conspiracy theories. Extraterrestrials, are they friend or foe? Are they playing God? Did they put us here? Are we their experiment in a petri dish? And, we start to grow our civilizations for a while, then they knock us down, they destroy the empires, they kill off, much of the population so it can start over again and see what new direction it might go in. There's all kind of crazy ideas out there of how extraterrestrials, or again, jinn, demons, archons, control life in this world and almost kind of have human beings as like a prisoner here. But it also makes you wonder, again, the question being, have these elitists made contact with something or someone that played these games with humanity for a long, long time? And now they're here saying, hey, we're going to show you how to play the game because you're the chosen ones. We're your gods. We're your angels. We are your extraterrestrial superiors. And we're going to show you how to literally reach for the stars and conquer the universe. False promises. Could it be possible that these beings, extraterrestrials, jinn, call them what you will, could it be possible that they know that a time would come with technology growing in our world that they wouldn't be able to be completely undetected as they were in the Dark Ages or before? And this is why they got some of our politicians and leaders and all of those kind of folks involved playing the game with them. Now, again, I'm not saying any of this is 100% fact, that we need to run off half-cocked and start saying that, our government's in cahoots with the jinn and they're, releasing bioweapons. And, but I will say this. I think where the evidence points and things that have been reported throughout history and things that we now know, these kind of thoughts bear thinking about. I don't think we can rule them out. I don't think we can sit back in our easy chair and have a chuckle and say, that's funny, but I know all about that and I know what that was because, I'm so smart, I'm so educated, I'm so, whatever. Because as I've been saying, probably all my life I've said it, but I've really been saying it over the last 2-3 years, is that truth is stranger than fiction, and man, is it strange in our world right now. And for me, I don't think you can be a logical, reasonable, thinking, spiritual, religious person and not look at the way of the world and the state that it's in right now and the things that have been happening and the things that are happening now. I don't think you can look at that and say, oh, gee, this is normal. I don't think we can say that at all. The times we live in right now seem to be anything but normal. And maybe when this egg cracks wide open and all or most of the answers are finally seen as plain as the noses on our faces, we're going to be absolutely shocked, horrified, terrified, mad, confused, because I think that truth probably will be stranger than fiction, more than we know. And that's why I think we need to think about topics such as this one. I don't think we should bury our heads in the sand, but on the other end of the spectrum, I don't think we should be like some of these crazy conspiracy theorists that run out there and say that all this is so and all this is happening, and man, get your guns and get your food and get your Bibles. That's not the way either. But I think this is information we all need to keep in our back pockets, in the back of our minds, know that it's out there, and just say, okay, my eyes are wide open, I'm looking, I'm being cautious, and at this point, in this crazy world with these crazy people, nothing would really surprise me. And just to finish off the thought, more men worship the Jinn than not. Most people worship the Jinn. There's also an Islamic prophecy that says the day will come before the day of judgment when the Jinn will walk among mankind, and they will also deceive many people. Could that be the air quotes landing of the extraterrestrials? Is that what we're in for next? To be roped into the false religion, false gods, false spirituality of these elitists? Here's our gods. Those of you who will be left after we're done and they're done, you should worship them too? Question mark? Well, that's what we're going to delve into in part 3 of this series this week, which will be coming on Friday. Again, maybe we're a little off into the tall grass here, but again, I think it's all stuff that's worth at least considering. Because truth is definitely stranger than fiction, and these are strange days indeed. And everything I've shared with you in this podcast about the Black Death, the bronze ships, the tall hooded beings spraying the mist, the ideas in ufology about our government making contact with something that they're kind of partnering with on some level, our government spraying live viruses over populated areas, injecting viruses into eggs. I mean, and this is just a small tip of the iceberg of the crazy crap that these people have done and the crazy things that have happened in our world. So I say keep an open mind and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But we can't be fanatical about these things either. But anyway, folks, I'm a little bit over time with this podcast. I really appreciate you listening. I hope you found this topic interesting. I hope you got something out of it. Until next time, stay safe out there, everybody, and I'll see you next time here on the Spirit Side.